So we have some pretty surprising and interesting news for everybody. This is from CNBC. Cory Booker joins Kirsten Gillibrand and other Senate Democrats in rejecting corporate PAC donations. Senator Cory Booker fell in line with other high-profile Democrats by vowing to stop accepting donations from corporate PACs. Booker joins the likes of 2020 hopefuls Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders with his pledge. Okay, so there's a lot to say about this. First and foremost, you have clear jockeying for position among Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Elizabeth Warren moving into 2020. It's not even close. It's crystal clear. Some of them have their heart dead set on running, and they're going to run. But having said all that, how are we to take this news that Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrats who are solidly in the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, how are we to take the news that they're rejecting corporate PAC money? Well, I've seen responses to this story that almost all of the responses, save one, I don't agree with. Because some people are overly optimistic about this, and they act like, that's it, we're done. Fly the flag, victory. I don't agree with that. And some people are overly pessimistic about this. Like, nope, doesn't matter at all, doesn't count at all because they're corporate Democrats and that's how they are. And nothing ever changes with that, so don't act like it does. I don't agree with that take either. I think the answer is in the middle. And I think the Rational National, David Dowell, he's got a great YouTube show. You guys should check it out. He did a good video on this when it was just Kirsten Gillibrand who announced she's not taking corporate PAC money. And his position basically sums up my position. And that position is cautiously optimistic. So is this the end-all be-all that they stop taking corporate PAC money? No. Is it a step in the right direction? Yes. So I want to show you some charts here so I can further flesh this out for you. First, we're going to look at Kirsten Gillibrand's numbers here. This is the source of her funds throughout her career. Or actually, I think it's 2013 to 2018. But so that's a large enough chunk to get a good sense of how she's been throughout her career. Small individual contributions. She's taken $4.5 million in that front. Now, those are what I would call the good donations. That's regular people saying, I like Kirsten Gillibrand. I think she's going to fight for me and fight for regular people, so here's some money. So that's defined as less than $200. A small contribution is $200 or less. 31.21% of her donations are small contributions, okay? Then you have large individual contributions, about $8.9 million. That's 61% of her contributions. Then you have PAC contributions, about 7.7 or 7.8%. And she hasn't done any self-financing. Now, to get rid of corporate PAC money, what that means is you're not going to have corporations officially bundle money, give it to her, and the reason why one would forego those donations is very simple. Those definitely come with strings attached. Oh, you want to take corporate PAC money? Well, guess what? They're going to immediately look at you to do their bidding. That's the way corporate PAC money works. If anybody tells you differently, they're idiots. Like the Supreme Court, for example, says, nope, this isn't corruption, and this isn't even the appearance of corruption. Well, you're wrong, and you're comically wrong, and you're idiots. Of course it is. If somebody gives you fucking thousands of dollars, you know, you're going to take that fucking phone call more than you're going to listen to a random grandma in Kentucky. Of course, that's human nature. So, for example, if the Republicans take, ExxonMobil money, well, then they're going to look at them like, okay, you're going to vote for our subsidy every year, right? Our corporate welfare check of $4 billion a year, right? If you take corporate PAC money from Wall Street, they're going to look at you like, hey, the next time a deregulation bill comes up, you're going to support it, right? Because that helps us. So you're going to do that, right? So that money definitely comes with strings attached. So for Kirsten Gillibrand to say, I'm not taking that anymore, good. That gets rid of the worst source of corruption and the most obvious source of corruption. Now, she's not foregoing all PAC money. So in other words, there are some PACs that give for like women's issues, for example, reproductive rights. She's like, I'll still take PAC money from them. Why? Because she ideologically agrees with them, and it's not like they're making her flip her position. They just support her position. She says, I'm pro-choice. They say, hey, we're pro-choice too. Here's the PAC money. So she says, I'm not going to stop taking that. I think union money, too, she's not stopping taking, which, okay, that's, I mean, on 90% of the issues, I agree with the unions, so it still has a corrupting influence, but it's a less corrupting influence. It's just not as damaging a special interest, if you will. There are a few issues where I disagree with them, like, for example, unions were in favor of, like, the Keystone XL pipeline because, hey, jobs. Now, that conflicts with what I think their proper position was, because we should care about the climate and say, no, we can find other sources of jobs, so no. So you might have union money show a conflict of interest in that sense, but overall, okay, you want to take union PAC money, you want to take women's issues PAC money, that PAC money is not nearly as bad as corporate PAC money, Wall Street money. So the worst source of corruption, corporate PAC money. She's saying, I'm not taking that anymore. That's good. Now, here's the point that David Dole made, which is a great point, which is what you still have to look out for in the case of Kirsten Gillibrand. And again, I'm not downplaying the fact that she stopped taking corporate PAC money. That's a good thing, unquestionably a good thing, and I'm giving her credit for that, credit where it's due on that front. But what happens is oftentimes politicians like Kirsten Gillibrand will have these dinners, will have these parties, and it'll be, hey, $2,000 a plate, or the limit, $2,500 a plate. And what they do is you will invite people from a particular industry. Maybe you have a meeting with Goldman Sachs, and maybe you say, hey, we're going to have a dinner with people from Goldman Sachs. Come on to the dinner, $2,500 a plate. And then you've packed a room full of Goldman Sachs people. They pay you $2,500 a plate. And then at that cocktail party, you have conversations with these people, and you're absorbing their worldview. So when you get rid of the corporate PAC money, you get rid of the worst source of corruption. There are still sources of corruption, being big money dinner parties where admittedly they're staying under the $2,500 individual cap, but the way in which the dinner party unfolds and the people you're surrounded by, you're not surrounded by the blue collar worker or the accountant or the teacher. You're surrounded by executives who have a very particular worldview, and you're going to reflect that if that's where you're getting a lot of your money. Now, again, in the case of Kirsten Gillibrand, the large individual contributions defined as above $200, usually it's the max of $2,500, that's 61% of her funding. So you should be happy she stopped taking corporate PAC money, but here's how the ultimate judge of how corrupt she is or isn't. Her voting record. So at the end of the day, if she stops taking corporate PAC money, but she supports a bill for deregulation of Wall Street, doesn't matter much that you stop taking the corporate PAC money because you still voted in the corrupt way at the end of the day anyway. But if you stop taking the corporate PAC money and you vote against the deregulation and you vote for Medicare for all, for example, and to be fair to Kirsten Gillibrand, she had recently come out and said, I'm in favor of Medicare for all. Well, then that's a good thing. Then we'll give you total credit. And listen, for Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand to say no more corporate PAC money, I need you to understand something. Everybody on the left who was saying, you know what, fuck you guys, I do have a purity test. How about that? I'm not going to support you unless you're for Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and you stop taking corporate PAC money. Everybody on the left who was loud, who was aggressive, who was unwilling to compromise, who was saying, no, I have a purity test, now come get my vote. All of you, you're the people to thank for them doing this. You're the people to thank for them taking a giant step in the right direction. Because if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have done it. So all of the shaming of the Jill Stein voters and the people on the so-called far left who said, no, Hillary's got to earn my vote. They're the ones who earned this. You would have never had Cory Booker and Kirsten Gillibrand ever come out and say, I'm done taking corporate PAC money, unless they were convinced I have zero chance in 2020 if I keep taking corporate PAC money. So this is a giant sea change. This is a step towards making the Democratic Party the party of workers again. Now, they're not there yet because I just told you 60%, 61% of her contributions are not small donations. They're large individual donations. So we're still not there yet, but it's a step in the right direction. So be cautiously optimistic. In the case of Kirsten Gillibrand, Just say, okay, I like that you stopped taking corporate PAC money. I'm going to keep my eye on those large individual contributions, but I just need to see this reflected in your voting record. Okay, so you say you're not corrupt anymore. Wonderful. Vote for Medicare for all, vote for free college, vote for a living wage, and then we'll give you even more credit. Okay, so cautiously optimistic. By the way, a good comparison here, what percentage of Bernie's contributions are small individual contributions? About 80%. Ideally, you'd want to have all the Democratic politicians get all of their money through small individual contributions. Now, again, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. If they want to take a little bit of union PAC money or women's issue PAC money, okay, that's not as bad, obviously, as corporate PAC money. But the ideal would be small individual contributions. And actually, the real ideal is just have publicly financed elections, clean elections. They don't have to worry about any of this private source of funding. But Bernie, who's more the paragon of being uncorrupted, he's about 80% small individual donations. So Kirsten Gillibrand is 31% small individual donations, 61% large individual donations. So just keep your eye on that, but again, cautiously optimistic. So now let's move on to Cory Booker. Cory Booker is worse. So his small individual contributions, less than $200, it's 10.24%, so about $2.3 million. That's lower, obviously. That's a smaller percentage than with Kirsten Gillibrand, and obviously Bernie's is 80% in that category. Large individual contributions, 72.84%, so about $16.5 million. PAC contributions is about 10.62%. So again, with him getting rid of corporate PAC money, don't get it twisted. It's definitely a step in the right direction because he's saying, I'm going to get rid of the worst source of corruption. Great. But again, same thing with Cory Booker as it is with Kirsten Gillibrand. Just keep your eye on that large individual contribution number. And also, the next step really is to try to push people to stop having those fancy schmancy cocktail parties where you're in a room with all Wall Street people who are paying less than the cap of $2,500 per individual contribution. But you're still absorbing their worldview. But either way, the more Democratic politicians that say no corporate PAC money, the better. That's good. And the next step, of course, is stop having those dinners with rich assholes who give you $2,500. Let's push you more towards the small individual contribution mold of less than $200. And the way that you start doing better fundraising that way is very simple. Just push for the right policy goals, the uncorrupted policy goals. Push for Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars and a New Deal and legalizing marijuana. And to be fair to Cory Booker, he's for legalizing marijuana, and he says he's for Medicare for all now. But if you push for those things, and in the long run, you're going to get a lot of small contributions, you're not going to get as many big contributions, and that would be better at the end of the day. So step in the right direction. Take a win where you can get it. You can thank a purity test leftist for this, because they're the ones who really are responsible for getting us this change. And just still keep in mind, though, that Wall Street and insurance companies and pharma are in Booker's top 10 contributors in large donations, large individual donations. So keep your eye on that. And, for Gillibrand, I think Wall Street is still in her top 10 contributors for large individual contributions. Now, again, you want to compare that to somebody who's really uncorrupted. Bernie's top donors are Democratic issues groups. Like, for example, we described women's rights groups where they push for reproductive rights and they donate money. So Democratic issues groups, education, they donate a lot to Bernie Sanders. Retired people. So you really want to be uncorrupted? Go towards small donations from the people by pushing an agenda that the people want. Move away from the large individual contributions. But having said all that, it's still a colossally positive thing that we now have Democratic politicians going, I'm not going to take corporate PAC money anymore because if I keep taking it, I have no chance of Never mind winning in 2020. I might not even have a chance of getting reelected the next time I'm up for election as a senator. So that's definitely a good thing. And let's hope this trend continues.